Well, in this edition of Finance in 5 Minutes presented by Stratfield Solutions, we're going to be looking at how to use Microsoft Excel to find the interest rate that we need in order to achieve a particular financial objective. Excel is a great tool to use this, whether you're in a finance class or need to come up with an interest rate for something like a loan or a car payment. And so we'll show you how to do this very quickly. If you like this video, please subscribe to us and ensure to give the video a thumbs up, and we really appreciate it. Now, moving on, the overview of this formula. We need to use the rate function to determine the interest rate for various cash flows that we need to achieve various finance objectives. You can do this by hand, but it takes a lot of steps, and the math, depending on how many cash flows you have, can get rather long. Fortunately, Excel has a super easy formula to use. So some tips and cautions when using the rate formula, or function rather, in Excel. Make sure you list out all of the information that you know about the series of cash flows. In this case, you should know the present value of the cash flow. If there is a future value, the FV, the number of periods that the rate's going to be applicable for, if there are any payments being made as part of a loan or as part of a savings plan, and if you're using payments, make sure to validate if they start at the beginning, which is for an annuity due, or at the end, meaning an ordinary annuity, of the period. Most of the time, and what Excel defaults is to the ordinary annuity, hence ordinary. However, if the payments are made at the beginning of the period, you do need to update the function in Excel to reflect that. Finally, in this in this function, there is a section for a guess. It's optional. I've seldom used it. I don't know a lot of people who've used it, but I'll show you what that is when we get to the formula. So the syntax in Excel before we jump into a practice problem. To use that rate formula, you use the equal sign, rate, open parentheses, NPER, payments, present value, future value, and then two optional inputs, type and guess. And I'll explain those in a second. The NPER is the applicable number of periods that the rate's going to be valid for. So if it's 10 years, we'll do 10. If it was 20 months, we do 20, whatever that applicable period is. We've talked about if you're using payments that you need to make sure it's either at the end or the beginning. The optional value of type has either a 1 or a 0. And so if you put in a 0, it means that the cash flows are at the end of the period. If you put in a 1, it tells Excel these cash flows are at the beginning of the period. Finally, the guess optional input that I mentioned, what that is if you wanted to speed up the calculation that Excel is performing and you have an idea that the interest rate may be close to a particular number, you can actually tell Excel to start checking for rates that are approximately around that number that you're thinking the interest rate might be. So having gone through this, let's jump into Excel and I'll show you a practical application of where you'd use this function. So here we are in Microsoft Excel, and what I've done is come up with a question that might be asked. What annual rate of interest must I earn so that in 10 years I can retire with $1 million if I'm able to put $50,000 into a savings account each year over the next 10 years? So clearly, I know that doesn't say anything about having a present value today. There's nothing in the account. My future value, what I want to have, is $1 million. The periods, the number of time periods are 10 years, so there are 10 periods. I've entered the payments in as a negative, and the reason I did that is because cash is leaving my hand in order to go into the savings account. One of the inputs, either present value or future value in this format or formula, must be a negative value. So the way I teach this is to show if the money is going out of your hand and somewhere else it is a cash outflow and should be put in as a negative. Since I'm paying money into the account, that is what I'm going to put in as the negative. As we talked about in the slides, formula equals rate, open the parentheses, select the number of periods, select the payments, select the present value, and then finally select the future value. It didn't say anything about the type when these payments occur, and I don't need to take a guess at the interest rate because this is pretty straightforward for Excel to do. Once I hit enter, I will get the interest rate that I would need to have on an account in order to get to $1 million for retirement. And with that 14.7%, you've now seen how to use the rate function in Excel to answer a very practical, everyday type of question within finance. And I hope you enjoyed the video. And like I mentioned in the beginning, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to us at Stratfield Solutions. And we'll see you in another Excel and finance tutorial soon. Thanks.